Good evening, everyone. So this is group number 5. All 6 of us are going to be presenting on the PSU, that is Coal India Limited. We are doing a thorough industry analysis of the organization and as well doing a competitor analysis to understand how the organization has been successful for so many years in the country and has been running as a sole provider of coal to several industries, which is acting as a backbone of the entire manufacturing sector, uh, from sale to the entire steel authority India Limited and to every steel producing unit in the country. So yeah, so we'll begin now.
Starting with the formation of coal during the Carboniferous era, some 300 million years ago, the conditions that would eventually lead to coal's formation started to emerge. Through the process of carbonization, peat can convert into coal under the adequate conditions and occurs under extreme temperatures and pressures. Commercial coal mining has been practiced in India for approximately 220 years, beginning in 1977 when the East India Company began working in the Raniganj coal field on the western bank of the river Damodar. The need for scientific development of the coal industry to increase coal production effectively was recognized even during the first plan period itself. The first significant move towards the planned growth of the Indian coal industry was the establishment of the National Coal Development Corporation (NCDC), a government of India undertaking with the collieries headed by the railroads as its core in 1956. An emphasis had to be placed on systematic exploitation of the coking coal reserves in the Jharia coal field due to the expanding needs of the steel industry. The private coal mine owners failed to provide sufficient capital investment to meet the nation's expanding energy needs. Poor labor conditions in some of the private coal mines and unscientific mining methods used by some of them raised issues for the government. The central government decided to nationalize the private coal mines for the aforementioned reasons. Demand-supply imbalances were unheard of in India after the nationalization of coal industry until 1991. Following liberalization norms in 1993, the government intended to distribute coal mines to various entities for captive consumption in order to focus on the rising energy demand. The state-run CIL was unable to meet the expanding coal demand, widening the supply-demand mismatch and led to an increase in import requirements. As a result, Coal Mines Special Provisions Act 2015 was passed by the Government of India, enabling the allocation of coal mines through auctions. The CCEA provided private sector's entry into the nation's commercial coal mining in February 2018. Coming to the formation of Coal India Limited, the entire national ownership of coal mines in India was achieved in 2 stages in the 1970s, thanks to the government's national energy policy. In accordance with the Coking Coal Mines Emergency Provisions Act 1971, which the Government of India published on October 16, 1971, all 226 coking coal mines were managed by the Government of India. Thus was created Bharat Coking Coal Limited. The central government also acquired control of all 711 non-coking coal mines with the issuance of the Coal Mines Ordinance 1973. The first 5-year plan noticed a larger requirement for coal production with the onset of Indian independence. The Working Party for the Coal Industry, which was established in 1951, consisted of officials from the government, labor organizations, and the coal industry, recommended the consolidation of small and dispersed producing units. As a result, the concept of a nationalized integrated coal sector was conceived.
Talking about the current market scenario of coal industry in India, despite the fact that coal will continue to dominate the power supply, India's coal industry faces formidable obstacles and impending upheaval. Production of cement and sponge iron is being reduced as a result of limits on the availability of coal, because the majority of domestic coal is designated for the generation of electricity, and because coal prices are high globally. India reached a new record high in coal consumption in 2021, consuming 1,053 metric ton, more than any other country besides China. India's demand for coal was mostly driven by its demand to produce electricity. The largest coal mining firm in the world, Coal India Limited, generates 84% of India's thermal coal. The majority of coal is sold to power generators at set prices, usually as part of fuel supply agreements. But CIL has lagged behind rising demands for years. The Indian government is leaning towards enabling more mining in the private sector and now permits end users to manufacture their own coal. The main difficulties in boosting domestic coal output, namely acquiring the land and permits required to do so, are not addressed by these measures. In order to address the issue, the government regulated coal supplies for the plant that had the most crucial stocks, increased mine production and offtake, encouraged captive block owners to increase production beyond what was necessary to meet their own needs and sell up to 50% of their production, and permitted the blending of up to 10% of imported coal. According to the current import policy, consumers themselves may freely import coal under open general license based on their own needs and commercial discretion. Steel Authority of India Limited and other steel making facilities import coking coal primarily to fill the gap between the demand and supply domestically and to raise the quality. Non-coking coal is imported by coal-based power stations, cement factories, captive power plants, sponge iron plants, industrial customers, and coal traders.
Shedding some light on the future of coal, the ecosystem in which coal is generated is intricate. It ranks among the top contributors to state budgets in various states. The Indian Railways, the country's largest private employer, is able to stay viable by overcharging for coal to make up for low passenger revenue. The largest coal miner in the world is Coal India Limited, a member of the public sector that supplies 85% of domestic coal. On the other hand, renewable energy, which is the least expensive alternative for new builds, will inevitably put pressure on coal. 7 of the top 10 most polluted cities in the world are in India, making local air pollution a national concern. This puts further strain on the production of electricity using coal. However, there is already a sizable amount of coal-based energy infrastructure in existence, part of which is not fully exploited. India's coal demand is expected to increase by 4% annually due to greater economic growth and rising electrification. Between 2021 and 24, the demand for coal is expected to increase by 130 million tons due to India's expanding coal consumption. There aren't many technologies that can immediately replace coal for most industrial uses, such as the manufacture of iron and steel. Current trends predict that the demand for coal will reach its highest ever, 8,225 metric tons in 2022, and stay there until 2024.
India intends to increase domestic coal output in order to lower import costs and ease the shortage of coal in late 2021. The 3 coal mining PSUs in India, Coal India Limited, Singareni Collieries Company Limited, and Neyveli Lignite Company, as well as captive blocks for self-consumption and possibly new commercial coal blocks put up for auction by the government, will be in charge of this expansion. The Ministry of Coal announced a number of initiatives in 2021 to facilitate the quick start of production from the commercial coal blocks purchased through auctions. To start with, a project management team has been tasked with assisting bid winners in resolving bottleneck problems. In order to establish a consistent platform that will accept all applications for required coal mining clearances and approvals, a single window clearance portal was also introduced. Last but not the least, a rolling auction method has been suggested, whereby every few months, second rounds for mines that only received 1 qualifying bid will be held and a fresh tranche of coal block auction will be organized. The inclusion of 80 new mines to the mine pool up for auction during the following 4 years has been proposed.
Coal India Limited enjoys a monopoly in the Indian market, despite the government opening the commercial coal mining to the private players in 2020. To reduce the monopoly, CIL enjoys and makes it more robust through competition from private players. The company has not seen much of an impact of the same on its profitability and production capacity. Out of a total domestic production of 716 million tons of coal in India, in the financial year 2020-21, CIL and its subsidiaries accounted for nearly 84% of the domestic production. The only competitor of CIL, if one can call it that, is SCCL. SCCL, however, supplies coal to the southern region of the country and is a distant second, producing only 50.80 million tons of coal. Some other companies include TISCO, IISCO, but these are not even competitors in any sense. Now, one of the major reasons for the continued success of Coal India, despite the decision of the Indian government to commercialize the coal sector, is the fact that the company has been in existence since 1975. It knows the business inside and out and has enjoyed monopoly for the longest time, giving it a first mover advantage as well as the chance to know the business inside out. Moreover, the company enjoys economies of scale as it holds the largest number of coal blocks in the country. Any company, domestic or foreign, would have difficulty in achieving that level of economies of scale, which might make commercialization of the sector for private players lucrative, as one might believe. Besides, India has a huge demand for coal, and as such, any production and dispatch of coal only shows up the country's indigenous coal output and does not unsettle the demand and supply. At the moment, India imports about one-third of its coal requirements. Commercialization would help it reduce the import burden of the country and not have any adverse effect on CIL's profitability and productivity. Despite the increased competition and complaints of delay in delivering coal to the customers, CIL need not worry about its monopoly in the time to come. One might raise the point that CIL might face competition in the future from renewable sources of energy, with India targeting to produce 50% of its electricity from renewable sources as of 2030. But the sector has been plagued by increasing taxes and duties on import, need for technology upgradation, pressures to reduce costs, and delays in project commissioning. As of now, only 13% of India's energy requirements are met through renewable sources, against 55% met through coal. In the coming future, there will be a great push from all the stakeholders, including customers and government, if renewable sources are to give a worthy competition to CIL. Moreover, CIL now follows a diversification strategy with which it aims to enter the renewable sources market, and thus it will not in the future face any competition from the sector as such.
So the challenges for Coal India are: first one is Coal Mines Nationalism Act (CMNA). So early in the 1990s, a committee assembled by the government came to the conclusion that Coal India cannot be expected to meet the demand of the power sector in case the pace of capacity addition accelerates. As a result, the Coal Mines Nationalization Act was amended in 1993, allowing the government to take 200 coal blocks totaling around 28 billion tons from Coal India and distribute them to end users for captive coal mining. Between 2007 and 2016, these end users, who are primarily in private sector, were unable to produce a sufficient amount of coal to meet the rapidly increasing demand for electricity. The Supreme Court's decision to revoke 214 blocks made the things worse. The production of coal today should have been at least 500 million tons per year, in line with the captive mines assigned to the end user industries MTPA. Actually, this has never gone above 60 MTPA. With depleted reserves, Coal India is asked to fill the expanding coal supply gap. These structural factors not only encouraged Coal India to exceed expectations, but they also kept the business under constant stress. Next one, post-COVID economic recovery. Power demand in India and across the globe has significantly increased as a result of the post-COVID economic recovery. Coal stocks at India's coal-based power plants have rapidly decreased, going from a secure 28 days at the end of March to a precarious level of 4 days by the end of September. The nation is having trouble figuring out how the crisis will likely play out in the near future. While preparing to play a significant role in addressing the power crisis, Coal India Limited has been unfairly attacked. After remaining unchanged for more than 3 years, the demand for thermal power saw an abrupt increase in the beginning of August. The post-COVID economic recovery is thought to be the cause of the spike in coal demand. The second wave of the pandemic caused significant short-term headwinds for Coal India's coal production in the first quarter. More than 250 Coal Indian employees died as a result of the infection, and thousands of workers and officers were hospitalized. The prolonged monsoon had a significant negative impact on open cast mining in the second quarter. This exacerbated the crisis by increasing supply disruptions. Next one is the coal sale dues by power plants. Their working capital position has been severely impacted by power plants' repeated non-payment of coal sale dues to the coal companies. Some businesses were compelled to take out bank loans to cover their operating costs, which included paying their employees' salaries. That was 18,000 crore rupees are reportedly owed to coal producers right now. Coal India has already increased its daily coal offtake to cover 1.5 metric ton. In upcoming weeks, it is anticipated to increase even more, reaching to 1.6 or 1.7 metric ton. With these initiatives, supply will at least match consumption. The crisis should pass quickly, and at least for power plants that make on-time payments for coal supplies, thanks to efforts made by the railways to move the coal. It is obvious that it will take some time for coal stock at power plants to increase to comfortable levels in life. And the last one, break on imports of coal. India had to import about 200 million tons of coal because the privatized and captive mines' inability to produce enough coal was a persistent problem. More than 40% of this is used to supply the needs of power plants. A spike in price of imported coal, primarily brought on by China, is a significant increase in coal imports put a stop to coal imports. The demand for domestic coal increased as a result. It is to the credit of Coal India that it was able to increase coal production by 14 million tons or 5.8% during the first half of 2021 to 2022, despite numerous constraints. However, the offtake was 52 million ton or 20.6% higher than the previous year. This was accomplished by reducing the opening coal inventory from 100 metric ton to 42 metric ton from April to September.
Now coming to the Porter's five forces analysis, we did an industry analysis for the entire coal mining industry that is existing in India. So we'll start with the bargaining power of, we'll start with the competitive rivalry. So one of the main, the Coal India being one of the major monopoly in India, there are very less competition in the market, and also coal mining being a very extensive and capital intensive technique. There is very less margin in the market, thus discouraging new entrants to enter the market. Coming to potential new entry, as we talked earlier about the competitive library, it's a very competitive, capital intensive industry. So government support, and also there is a lot of government support backing Coal India in this industry because it's a PSU. So it's very difficult for a new company to set up a shop in India and also acquire all the tenders and all the mining strategy in order to reinvent the mining strategy in India and also produce coal at the scale that Coal India is producing. Coal India has a very wide base in India with mining from Srinagar to Jharkhand to Odisha and to the entire across the entire country. So it is very difficult for a new entrant to enter the market and establish shop. Now talking about the bargaining power of the customers. The bargaining power of the customers is also not very high, it's very low. Since mostly the major customers of Coal India Limited are B2B, is B2B, which is to the either other PSUs in India like the Steel Authority of India Limited or to the coal power generating plants like NTPC or Reliance. So they do not have to deal with direct to consumer market in India. They mostly deal with the big players, and since they control most of the supply of coal in the market, the customers do not have a lot of opportunity to move to a new supplier. Hence the bargaining power is also very low. Now talking about the bargaining power of suppliers, the major raw material that is used in the production of coal is magnetite, and magnetite being even though a rare material, there are several suppliers in the country providing the same to Coal India. Hence Coal India does not have to rely on a single supplier to for the procurement of magnetite, thus also reducing the bargaining power of suppliers. Now talking about substitutes, yes, there are several substitutes available for coal as a fuel. Coal being one of the oldest fuel generating fuel source in India. Now there are several alternatives to it. There are several green alternatives to it. However, the kind of efficiency that coal provides, it is not being provided by other fuel material. So the threat of this is moderate. So this will end the entire Porter's five forces. Will, can you go to the next slide? So now talking about the pestle analysis for Coal India Limited. When we come to the political part, the political stability and importance of the non-metallic mineral in the mining sector is very important. Say India being a white democracy, it's mostly stable. So Coal India is able to bank on the government support that they get and produce and get regular tenders in the market. Hence they're successful in the market. Also, India being a regulated democracy, they have certain advantages to it, where the India has imposed several import and export restrictions on coal, thus giving them a slight edge in the market. One of the negative impacts of Coal India being favored by the government is that they have to go through a lot of bureaucracy and interference through by the government. There is a lot of red tapeism, which hinders the productivity of the organization. Where another bad point for the Coal India Limited would be, since being a government organization, there are several levels where there can be a lot of corruptions taking place from the procurement side to the supply side. So these are the things that will be encompassing in the political landscape. Now coming about the environmental factors, fracking is, as we know, is not very environmental friendly. It's very detrimental to the to our environment. Hence, there are a lot of environmental activists who are protesting against it, and even the governments are sometimes put into pressure to impose restrictions or coal. So that is something that they need to take care of. Apart from that, the entire world is now talking about sustainable development and sustainable growth. So the world is trying to move toward alternative sources of energy. Even though India being a developing economy, coal is a very important source for growth. Still, there are certain areas where there are still certain chances where coal might get banned in the future. So Coal India need to focus on other alternative sources where they can diversify their portfolio. Talking about the social factors, India being a very very demographically very high demographic dividend in the country with people from very diverse background and language skills, it provides them an opportunity to explore in various markets. One thing that acts as a negative point here is the class structure, hierarchy, and the power structures that exist in the coal mining industry. Majority of the labor forces come from not very privileged classes of people, so there are always chances of them being exploited and thus acting as a liability for Coal India, as that can turn into a labor issue. So that is something that need to be focused on. Avil, can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, now coming to the technological factors, technology is something which is very important when we are talking about coal fracking and mining. Coal, as we know, is procured through several years of sedimentation in the rocks and through several years of wood being decomposed over millions of years. So it is very important that the organization know in which spot they need to mine and which areas they need to explore in order to find good quality coal. So that is why they need to be regularly updated in the technological prospects. Then there needs to be a lot of investment into research and development. Apart from that, they also are always looking to increase their margins. Hence, they're always trying to focus on high rate of technical diffusion in the economy. Coming to the legal part, as we talked earlier, coal industry is a very regulated industry in the market, even though the government is trying to deregularize it since 2018. However, there are still several aspects to it which are still harming, which are not harming in the sense, but they're restricting Coal India to become a global player in the market. They have dominance in the Indian market. However, if they want to go global, they need to focus on how to get these regulations down so that they can become a global player in the industry. Coming to the economic factors, economic is a very macro factor that we're talking about. India as a whole, as the economy is in a very growth phase where we are in a very developing phase of the country. So the coal production and coal demand is increasing at close to 8.6% a year, which is a very good indicator for Coal India. And also having a huge supply of labor in the market, it helps them to increase their margins, having very low labor costs. So I guess these are some points that will be very crucial when we're doing economic factor analysis for Coal India Limited for our project.
The only strategy of Coal India in recent years has been diversification. In an effort to diversify, Coal India is placing significant bets on renewable energy. According to the chair, the introduction of renewable energy sources won't threaten Coal India's stability in near term. Coal India Limited is concentrating on renewable energy, particularly solar energy, as a step towards diversifying in order to prepare for the future. Additionally, it plans to submit bids for jobs under production-linked incentive program. 2 new subsidiaries for development of non-conventional clean and renewable energy, as well as photovoltaic module development, were formed by Coal India Limited earlier this year. These subsidiaries were Coal India Limited Navikarniya Urja and Coal India Limited Solar PV. At an estimated cost of 13,500 crore, the company intends to produce nearly 3,000 megawatts of solar energy by 2024. While some of it would be covered by internal accruals from business, the remainder would be covered by SPV and bank loans. The Union Coal Secretary Anil Kumar Jain recently highlighted the process of energy transition and diversification, saying that CIL is diversifying They're getting into coal gasification. They're looking at aluminium. They are looking at non-coal businesses. The National Coal Gasification Mission was announced by government last year, and Coal India intends to support the gasification of 100 million tons of coal by financial year 2030. By financial year 2030, Coal India also wants to have 3,000 megawatts of solar power capacity and has installed 8.436 megawatts of renewable energy capacity as of January 2022. According to two officials with knowledge of the situation, the company is awaiting a number of clearance for its intended integrated greenfield aluminium project in Odisha. The project had received approval in December from government panel headed by Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik. As it works to reduce carbon footprint, state-run Coal India Limited is expanding its production of aluminium, solar energy generation, and coal gasification. Following the government promotion of the energy transition and goal of achieving net zero carbon emission by 2070, the decarbonization process gained traction of PSUs. The company is looking for expression of interest for an equity partner and has applied for bauxite block at Sijimali in Odisha. On the condition of anonymity, the aforementioned official stated that no projected completion date for the project could be provided at the time. The most recent annual general meeting stated that the entry of renewable energy sources would not threaten coal's near future. According to consumption pattern, it would continue to play a leading role in India's electricity production. Coal-based generation accounted for 950.7.5 billion units, or roughly 69% of nation's total power productions for the year 2021. In addition, coal continues to fuel a variety of non-power industries, such as those producing aluminium, sponge iron, cement, and fertilizers. Due to its abundance, accessibility, and affordability, coal remains India's preferred energy fuel. Until alternate energy sources begin to contribute significantly, coal will continue to serve as nation's primary and irreplaceable energy source.